I would like to introduce our resource person for our first topic, which is, as I've mentioned earlier, he is the founder of Halal Resource Center. And he is also co-founder and former chair of the Muslim Business Forum. May I now call on our resource person for this afternoon, Mr. Alberto Olermo. Sir?
Thank you. How do I read your name? Azri?
Azel. Azel lang po. Azel.
Without an I.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for that. I think that's the shortest introduction I had. There's not really to say more about me. It's all just about what the orientation is all about. So may I know first how many participants we have now?
We have 55 online.
May I know what's the profile of them? Briefly lang, ano bang products nila?
Okay. Can I request po?
Just
I request?
sample products.
Sige. From Palawan?
Nila, varied po. Food industry, restaurants, food processors.
So, ganyan po ang experience. Very smooth, no?
Yan po ang agri, farm, may mga farm owners, farm products po. We also have government representatives from the Negotiation Center and DTI.
An issue also with
and from the province.
As much as possible, ayaw natin tinitipon yung tao ngayon, mga panahon na to.
Okay. Yes. Is this from Puerto Princesa?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Briefly from Legazpi or what? Iloilo ba?
Yeah, let's see. Sino bang pwede mag-share from Legazpi? Andito ba si Chichi?
When you do check out, pagdating sa payment method, naglalabasan na kami mga payment.
Meron din po pala for Palawan, live goat, so livestocks.
So,
Okay.
I see here, goat, sheep, cow. Well, Tagbilaran City. So we have all participants. What sort of products do you have?
From Bohol? Anybody from Bohol po na pwede mag-share?
Briefly lang. Food, processed foods. We have, restaurants, manufacturing. Yeah.
Hotel. Yeah.
So I see a hotel name here. Good afternoon, Tara, Kaon Food Services. This Tara, Kaon Food Services, what sort of product is this? Mga take-out products ba ito? So there are ice creams. I see ice creams, cakes, organic juices. Yeah. Well, healthy food, taro leaves, natural vinegar, different vegetables. Okay, thank you for your reply. At least I have a general understanding of what sort of products we have. Again, welcome to this orientation on halal principles, standards, and certification processes. May I introduce actually our first for a while as a data. All right, so that's the first frame that that I'm showing now. Medyo malinaw ba? Are you
Yes,
see?
sir.
Are you
Yes, sir.
saying? Well, that's my Muslim name, and that's my
Okay.
heart's name. Uh, but my civil name is Alberto. That's correct. Sir Kaloy calls me boy then, but I was still very young then, so I thought they just have to call me Jomir. Okay, we go with the second frame, quick knowledge. I always call this a quick knowledge. And I'm referring to this institution of halal, the word halal as applied to food. If you'll see, it says there from farm to plate. It is actually the whole concept, and it's the entire coverage of halal quality assurance on food, and the purpose of which is to promote good health and well-being. In short, the coverage is from raw materials to finished product. You keep this in mind because this will be the things that you will come across as I move along with my sharing of knowledge to you. Now, we need to understand your niche market. Every business for that matter, kahit sinong negosyante, dapat naintindihan natin kung sino yung tinatawag nating niche market. Meron tayong tinatawag na general market. Every man, women, every boy, girls in town, basically these are all general market for our product, whatever products that we have to offer to the general public. Niche market. This word is quite particular to a segment in your general market. For example, you thought that you need to serve a certain specific market like vegetarians. So you prepare food, you process food just for the vegetarians. The vegetarians are now referred to as niche market on top of the general market that you are targeting for your product. This time, I'll be talking to you, I'll be sharing with you about the niche market that some people are trying to figure out how to be able to penetrate them or being able to encourage them to patronize the products that you have prepared. But before that, I have to go back to that word halal. I think for the last 20 years, I have said it thousands of times what halal is all about. This one, I'm just saying that it is actually a big word. And this is the reason why it is a big word. As a general term, it covers a wide range of application, meaning it's all about human behavior. It also covers attitude and activities, the way we deal with our families, with our neighbors, with our fellow Muslims and non-Muslims, the way we dress or the way you dress, the way you conduct business or engage in trade or economic transactions, the way you work with fellow workers, and specifically for our afternoon session, food to eat among others. That's why it is a big word. So this time we are just dealing with one aspect of the coverage of the word halal, and that is food. It says here that in relation to food and non-food as a particular application, and as a term, it is a science of well-being. You'll understand that as we go along. Promoting well-being in the sense that halal food should be, one, it should be clean, it should be safe, it should be wholesome. I'll stop there. This three is actually universal the universal needs of all consumers. Everyone would like to consume something that is clean, that is safe, and wholesome. Now, there's the fourth, which which is being given emphasis. That's lawful. This is very particular for the halal consumers. Even if a product is clean, even if it is safe, even if it is wholesome, the final question is that lawful for halal consumer to consume? That's the last question before making a decision whether to avail of the product or not. And when this question is asked, it falls under the principle of halalan tayyiban, which means permissibility and goodness. Now we'll break it down. Halalan, the root word is halal. And as you have learned, it means allowed or permissible. The other word, the root word is tayyib in the tayyiban, which means good. In a very strict sense, when we say halal food, it is not only permissible, but it should also be good. Uh, but the focus now of certification is mostly on the permissibility. But in the context of halal tayyiban, it should be both permissible and it should be both good. I'll proceed. So halal, which means permissible, is being acknowledged as a value added to a product. And this time you will learn its opposite. Now there's a gray area between these two words, and we refer to it as shubha, which means doubtful. Now, what is this shubha? If a halal consumer is in a dilemma, or if he or she suspects or has any this gut feel that this food is not really something that he should take or she should take, the rule of the thumb is avoid it. Avoid it. In a very non-Muslim country like the Philippines, 7 million Muslims are actually have this daily challenge where to find food fit for them to consume. So now you have three basic terms that you need to understand in the world of halal, and that is halal, which is permissible, and the opposite is haram, and the gray area in between is shubha. As a value, which I mentioned earlier, it ensures one's both physical and spiritual well-being. Spiritual in the sense that the halal consumer consumes only what is lawful and good as divinely mandated. If you will notice, divinely was underscored. Okay. Now let's see what is this all about. So what is this divine mandate? Please allow me to cite a, a verse in the Quran. Right? O ye people, eat of what is on earth lawful and good. This is the motherhood statement. There are still a number of verses in the Quran which deals with food consumption, but this one is very, very clear as a motherhood statement in relation to food consumption. Muslims are actually governed in their own daily lives, practically everything. As I mentioned earlier, even the way they dress, the way they deal with their neighbors, with their family or their friends or fellow workers, is all covered by divine guidance. Now let me proceed on the specific of this: eat what is on earth lawful and good. At this time, it starts with a question: what if one fails to observe this divine mandate? This is actually a very good question. I would like to refer to what the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam have said. There will come a time upon my ummah. Ummah means people. When people will not be concerned with what they consume, it will not matter to them whether it is haram or halal. When such time appears, none of their du'as be accepted. That word du'as means personal prayer of halal consumer. So it has been prophesied by the Prophet of Islam that there is really a concern that halal consumers may no longer be concerned with what they consume. And yet, the Prophet Islam says, if that happens in the future, none of their personal prayers will be accepted. Now it's becoming clear as a guideline. We have another of what the Prophet of Islam has conveyed to his people. He said, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in whose hands is my life. When a person eats a tiny, and that's underscored, tiny piece of an item which is haram, none of his deeds are accepted by Allah for 40 days. Now it's getting clearer and clearer. What is deeds? These are actually good deeds. Imagine even the good deeds will not be accepted for 40 days because of a tiny piece of item which was absorbed by our body. So what about if you took another or more tiny pieces of food? So meaning within 40 days, another additional of 40 days and 40 days and 40 days. And all your good deeds will not be accepted. But take note of the last line as a guidelines to halal consumers. When the flesh of the body is built from haram, then his body only deserves the hellfire. Hellfire is basically impierno, local lingo natin. And that's actually a very disturbing line from the Prophet of Islam. Now, you will understand those who are producing food and intends to sell to halal consumers, that this is their psyche. This is the kind of guidance in their thoughts and in their heart, that if ever they were tempted to take on something that is shubha or doubtful or outright unlawful or haram, well, basically the decisions are made for you on how it's going to be in your what's going to be your future in this temporary world. There is another question here which says, are halal food only for a particular group of consumers? I guess this refers to the halal consumers. I included this because in one of the fora that I was requested to be a resource person, I actually asked one of the participants of what is his understanding of halal food, and he responded by saying that he thought these are only the food that are only for the halal consumers or Muslims. So I said, I'm sorry, but I have to correct you. It's not really true. It's the same prepared chicken, the same beef that everyone else consumes. It's the same fish, vegetables, fruits, and juices that everyone else enjoy, and the same bread, spreads, and jams, cookies, and biscuits that everyone else buy and consume, to name some. So that being the case, the next question is, so where's the difference? Ano ba ang pinagkaiba kung pareho lang ng palang kinakain natin? So I will cite it. Halal animals and poultry. Very specifically, I am talking about chicken, about goat, about cattle, about lamb, about turkey. These are halal animals. They all must be slaughtered according to Islamic traditions or practices. It does not follow, what I'm saying is that it does not follow that since there is a chicken, halal chicken, was cooked and prepared for you, you can immediately consume it. No. There's a need really to find out whether these halal animals were actually slaughtered according to Islamic practices. That's the one difference. Here is very familiar term for you. I think it's all over the country. No meat from double dead animals. I think this is still prevalent in our public wet market, even if they are halal animals, right? Now, there is a halal meat vendor here in General Santos City. By the way, I'm based in General Santos City. By 6 o'clock in the morning, all the beef that is offering are all wiped out by 6. The other tables selling same beef or cattle meat, they have to wait for another 2 hours before they all be gone. Why? Because all the restaurants, eateries, they would prepare to buy first the halal beef because they believe that it's not double dead and it is, or it was freshly slaughtered. Okay? Now, another thing that I would like to share with you when it comes to halal animals. For example, a goat is halal animals. If there was this accident and this particular goat was bumped by a car, normally the people will approach them and try to feel the animal or the goat. And one would say, mainit pa ito. Katayin na lang natin ito. Slaughter na lang natin ito. Sayang naman. So basically, that's the thing that you will normally hear. Is that allowed in Islam? Actually, it's not. That's one example. The other example, for example, is still a goat. And this goat was bumped by a bicycle. And it has a broken limbs, or a part of the body was hit quite badly. And one would say, and those who would approach the goat would say, mabuti pa siguro katayin na natin ito. Let's have this goat slaughtered because it might create infection in the body, and sayang naman, and it will go to waste. Is it allowed in Islam? Actually, it's not. The rule and the guidance for this that if it was indeed infected, then let it die, but you cannot cook it. But if there's a good reason that this particular goat who had an accident can still be revived and put back to its original healthy and physical shape, then it's already allowed to be slaughtered for consumption. And I hope this is clear to you. No poison and chemically treated fishery and aquaculture products. Well, who would want anyway to eat something that's poison fishery or aquaculture products? Now, for example, fish pans or prawn farms. Very few have some knowledge of this, that some chemicals are actually put into the water to neutralize organisms that will actually compete with prawns or the fishery the fish or the fish on the pan for oxygen, right? And then you really need to know whether when after harvest, whether there are residue of these chemicals. In fact, an aquaculturist, if you will be honest to you when it comes to prawns, she would advise that you will take that portion. Yung pa naman pinakamasarap na portion eh. Kung nasaan yung mga gills, kasi nandun yung taba ng prawn, he would not advise to take that because that's where the concentration of residue ng chemicals. So again, that's very clear. No poison or chemically treated fishery aquaculture products unless this has been certified or cleared by laboratories or safe for consumption. And then I'll proceed to the next slide. No pork-based condiments. When you have an animal slaughtered according to Islamic rites, that's good enough as a first step. Now, of course, you have to cook it. When cooking it, you just don't put water and cook it. You put some other things into it and other condiments to make it tasteful and tasty for everyone. So the condiments will be a concern, especially mga packets of condiments which we really don't know what are the nature of those ingredients in the condiments. Of course, it says that there should be no wine in food. I mentioned in one workshop when I asked the muftis and Islamic scholars in France for presentation purposes, in a platter of food, they will spray something into the plate, and the customer would ask, "What's that?" And the waiter would say, "It's alcohol." And then he will come out with a lighter, and then light it out, and then there's the alcohol turned into fire, and it's gone. Okay, that's for presentation purposes. The question is that halal? Still, is that alcohol? Is that food in a product? Is it still halal? Especially that all the alcohol must have been evaporated out of when it was lighted. And then that's where the question that this time we really have to put it in a real test by a lab analysis, because the question will still be on the residue, a tiny residue of alcohol in food. Generally, it becomes shubha. It becomes shubha. And until the laboratory now comes out with its own finding, because the laboratory basically becomes the final arbiter on the presence of anything that is considered haram in a food. Now, the last line is about hygienically prepared food, clean, safe. This is very universal, as I said much earlier. Now, the question is, who are exactly these halal consumers? 1 in every 5 humans on earth is halal consumer. Well, maybe many of you would have thought that 1 in every 5 humans on earth is really a halal consumer. Yes, it is. Some years back, in the early 1980s, there is this single biggest discovery market for specialty food, and this is called as the faith-based food. And the annual value of this is $1.128 trillion, representing 17% of the total global food market. When I say value of 1.28 trillion, I'm referring both to the food consumed and the drinks consumed, and the movements of halal food from one country to another, right? So this was the result of the survey made between 2015 and 2016. under the Survey on General Islamic Economy, also presented by J. Thompson. Now look at the figures. 1.6 billion halal consumers in 115 countries in 5 continents. In Southeast Asia, where we belong, there are 440 million. In the BIM Iaga, which is just in the very south of our country, there are 24 million. And in the Philippines, between 6 to 7 million. Now, the Gulf cooperation countries, comprising of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, and I guess it includes Kuwait, they actually consume more than 44 billion worth of halal products. There was this, in the early 2000s, there was this workshop in Australia. The workshop is about where can we sell halal products, high quality food products. That's the emphasis. And one country was actually mentioned there was Philippines. And Australia is actually selling the Philippines nearly $500 million Australian dollars of halal food. And mostly you'll find them in resorts and urban centers. So Australia actually saw the Philippines as a market for their halal quality products. And they're here in our own country. So that's basically the snapshots of the facts and figures on the size of halal consumers on a global scale. Now, there are 3 types of primary market for halal food. Firstly, the market in Muslim countries. By the way, the largest concentration of Muslims is actually in Asia. Indonesia alone is the largest Muslim community in the world. China has more than 13 million Muslims. And then we have India, which is the second Muslim community, second largest Muslim community in the world with 120 million. And there you have the Pakistan, and you have the Bangladesh, right? And Africa continent, you can count 400 million halal consumers. And then the second type of primary market is the market in non-Muslim countries with sizable Muslim population that includes Thailand and the Philippines. Okay. And the last one is the non-Muslims. These are the non-Muslims looking for clean, safe, and wholesome food. Well, you signed a question mark, but as I look into the program, I will not ask you about question, neither will I ask you to raise a question because there will be a portion for that. So I'll proceed with the permission of our host for the day. By the way, are you still there? Nandiyan pa ba kayo?
Yes.
Okay, taas ng kamay.
Yes.
Yes, we're still here.
It's like this. I would really encourage
Yes, sir, we're still here.
ganitong oras na ito, itong
Yeah.
conduct ng session dahil talagang gusto natin medyo nagpapahinga tayo, no? But just for this afternoon, have this patience and because this is not going to happen every time. And of the 110 million Filipinos, only very few of you will be able to know this. Consider this as new knowledge gain for the day. I hope this is all right for everyone. Now the question is, how does one product becomes halal compliant? Normally, I will ask you on this, but again, I have to defer to the program for the question and answer question. So how does one product become halal compliant? You can actually do your, also check your record. It's only through certification. By the way, just yesterday, I also conducted a session on halal certification. And these are the processors based in Cotabato City just yesterday morning. Except that it is quite the most difficult way of conducting session because the internet was really very poor in Cotabato City. So I have to do my discussion over my cell phone, and they put the sound of my cell phone on the sound box, and so the participants who are live there in one place in the city hall to hear my voice. So meaning, or in short, we ended up the session without me seeing them and them not seeing me. But that's something else. So it's about through certification. Again, there was a question yesterday when the participant said, can I actually claim if, I mean, after seeing through the requirements and then I followed it, can I actually claim that it is halal? And I said, no. No. Even a Muslim cannot say that his food is halal because the requirement is actually should be a third party. But again, Muslims and with other Muslims, we just simply have to try. I mean, we simply have to trust each other that it is halal. For one reason, because it has to be covered by halal assurance system. And I was very blunt about this when I spoke in several halal sessions in Holo, in Basilan, in Marawi, and Zamboanga. And I asked, from my fellow brothers, sisters, not to be angry with me, don't feel bad. When I say that 95% of Muslim eateries may not pass the halal assurance system. And basically, they will fail on one aspect, which is the very primary aspect, which is the hygienic and sanitary preparation of food, which actually is also true for a number of non-Muslims who are engaged in food preparation or in food services. So I have to be very blunt about this. It's all about third-party certification. It's not you claiming it as halal on your own. If organic products are certified as such by independent organizations, similarly, halal products requires third-party attestation. In Islam, witnesses are component of any form of contract between two people. There should be a witness. There should be a third party. Yes, this is what how they understood. Yes, this is what they agreed with. And yes, they agreed that this thing is really good for them. Right? May I proceed? Halal as it is, as you would now begin to understand, has evolved into a food safety guidelines of what is being referred to now as Halal Assurance System, or HAS. It is now a food safety guidelines. Halal food standard, that word standard, remember that, is a quality control system by itself, the equivalent of ISO, the HACCP or HACCP, and GMP. I hope most of you are familiar with this. The HACCP, or sometimes or many times they say it's HACCP. It's hazard analysis critical control point, and GMP is good manufacturing practices. But one small processor says, maliit na naman kaming producer. That's true. But it is already good that as early as being a small processor, we start practicing good manufacturing processes. You have to start practicing how really to prepare food that it will end up as a clean and safe food product. Now, this food safety guidelines, this was actually started in 1997. Honestly, 1997. Malaysia submitted food guidelines on the use of the term halal to Codex Alimentarius Commission. This Codex Alimentarius Commission is actually the food standard setting unit which was jointly created by the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization. So that was in 1996. The following year, now it becomes a guideline. It's a food safety guideline promulgated by the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And these initial guidelines are actually used by the Arab countries as their own guidelines on the use of the term halal. That was the first. Then over the years till this day, it has become, as it said, into a food safety or quality control system by itself. Now, what I'm saying is that if we remove ISO, if we remove HACCP, if we don't have this GMP, the halal quality control system can't stand on its own, except is that it cannot be applied on those things that are considered haram, right? So it's now a food safety system, and it has its own guidelines. I may proceed. Well, another question mark. I'll move to the next frame. The pillars in halal compliance. These pillars now are for you, for the participants in today's session, for those producing food, and for those who intend to sell food to halal consumers, or those who want their products to become certified as halal. Take note of these pillars and keep them always in your hearts. Number one, knowledge. First step is to find time to understand the principle, which I have already started sharing to you, and the meaning of halal in relation to food and non-food. By the way, I was asked by a colleague of mine, he asked me, brother, this non-food, what is it that to be scrutinized from non-food? I said, still the same. It's still anything anything in relation to haram or animal-based nature or ingredients being used and everything, from lipstick to perfumeries and other non-product items, beauty care products especially. I need actually to share with you that there are over 100 industrial uses of items derived from swine. All right, here's a brief story on canned products. It used to be that when, actually this happened in Paris or in France, when manufacturing, food manufacturing companies slaughters pig or swine, normally they just throw the skin and the fat to the river. Tapon na lang nila yun sa ilog. Later on, parang nanghinayang sila. Pwede sigurong gamitin yun. So, next time, they don't anymore throw it as garbage. They use the skin and the fat as extenders. And then they put it in the label, and the label says extenders, animal fat, without saying anything, just animal fat, right? And then they realize that Muslim countries are not really that keen about the products because of that animal component, which is unknown. But even before that, they already mentioned the pork animal as an extenders. Real of pork. They remove the pork and then they change with animal extenders. Now, these days, they use already what they call as E-code. E-code, in a numbered E-code, for example, E121, E116, E161, E122, E128, something like that. So you will see them even in coffee sachets. There is the E number. Now this is now the challenge for halal certifying bodies to find out which of those E codes actually contain haram ingredients. And luckily, we already identified them. We already identified them. And this is now the kind of information that we are actually conveying to our brothers and sisters in Islam. That's how it is. It's most like a hide and seek thing in the food market. Okay. Again, going back to the knowledge, this knowledge should be sought or should not be limited to the owners, but also to those involved in research and development. Also for those involved in quality assurance, in purchasing, in production, in marketing, storekeeping, packaging, and the transport as mentioned. Well, paano kami sir? Maliliit na naman kami. Ako na yung R&D, ako pa rin ang purchasing, ako pa rin ang QA. Well, that's understandable, ma'am or sir. There's no problem with that. Okay. We know very well that small processors normally it's a family affair activity. Your husband, if she is very supportive of you, or your wife if is supportive of you, or your children, or your pamangkin, or even your some close relatives. It's basically a company of 3, 5, or 4 people in the same household. Again, you will always have R&D. Kasi titikman din niyo yan eh. Titimplahin din yun. Ano yung babawasan nyo, anong idadag nyo, ano pwede nyo idagdag. And then quality control, of course, you want it na it's really tasty, maganda ang kanyang, it's good how to look at. Of course, it tastes good. And then, paano ang packaging? Purchasing. Kayo rin namimili, so hahanapin yung good quality at the least cost. Normally, ganyan ang business, di ba? Good quality raw materials at the least cost. And then you go into production. And part of your job is that the father, the mother, the child, the daughter, the son, that's the marketing. Sila na rin nagbebenta. And storekeeping ng lahat ng kanilang mga ginagamit sa production is still, again, done by the family members. And so with the packaging, and driver, maaaring nakasakay sa bisikleta, sa motorsiklo, tricycle, jeep, or 10-wheelers. I don't know if that's the size of your business. It's all the market. So halal is not just about the end product. Take note of that. Halal is not just about the end product. It is the entire process. Kaya nga, if you remember your first frame, yung first slide na present ko, that's the coverage from farm to plate. So the halal consciousness, the halal compliance consciousness should cover that length, the entire process. Now you have your knowledge. So your knowledge, now you have no problem because this session now becomes your first step. Now you have your knowledge thanks to Source Project. Then we proceed to the next. That's sincerity. This is really very important. This can be observed. Halal consumers can always feel you. They can see you. They can observe you. The way you handle product with care, with such good preparation. No? And then the way you convey your message. Meron kayo nagsasabi, like for instance, may tinatanong ako isang nagbebenta. Tanong ko sa kanya, masarap ba ito? Yung pagsagot niya sa akin na una, parang masarap, sir. Parang nag-aalangan pa. She is not even sure na masarap nga yung binibenta niya. Same thing with the halal. If the halal consumer asks, halal ba ito? They would know in the tone of the voice and the facial expression whether sigurado pa siya halal yung in-offer na pagkain. Now, it's about reliability as a producer of halal food. The sincerity goes with the feeling ng halal consumers na kahit hindi kayo nakikita over 24-hour period, they feel na talagang ginagawa yung dapat na gawin, na yung halal food remains really as halal compliant. And it complies with all the requirements at all times that is set. Now the third, integrity, is all about honesty in business dealings. Actually, this is universal. This is universal. It's not limited to this halal thing that we're talking about. The locked in honesty in business dealing. We need to be consistent. We should be uncompromising in the way we adhere to strong moral and ethical practices and values expected by the halal consumers. This is very important, you know why? This honesty. Take this as in a business point of view. First, halal consumers, they really love to eat. And they eat a lot. Two, they have big families. And they always find ways to take on food wherever they go. Three, this is actually the good thing. They pay in cash. They don't use credit card because that's not allowed in Islam. Fourth, they have big plans. And normally, whether you believe me or not, despite the onset of modern communications, yung tinatawag na word of mouth. Sabihin mo daw sa uncle mo, sabihin mo daw kay apo mo, sabihin mo na dito kung bumili ha, dahil masarap na siya, halal pa. And that word of mouth spreads even faster than our smart or even global communication now, which we are complaining a lot. Okay? So that's it. And before you know it, you have an entire communities partaking and buying your product. Look at it in a business aspect for your own consideration, of course. Consistency. Again, you need to decide whether you want to be in a long-term basis business. I think every business wish really that is going to be an acceptable product to both to the conventional or niche market, and anyone who goes in the business wanted it to grow and grow more and expand and even pass it on to the next generation. Right? So the application of all food safety systems and the halal quality assurance in a product should remain the same all throughout the lifetime of the business if one is to become a reliable source of halal products. And the word is consistency. What do we have next? Now the perspective. This perspective refers to the certifying body. Yung ginagawa o gagawing evaluation ng certifying body or halal certifying organization, very specific ang kanilang objective. That yung product or yung food product either prepared or manufactured, dapat walang swine meat. Walang swine derivatives. Blood and byproducts in whatever form. And of course, alcohol and then wine. So I have one participant who has a bake shop. Papani, sir, meron kaming mga product na meron talagang wine. Sabi ko, sabit yan. Sabit yan. Anything. And even in small amount. We know actually what are those the bakery products na nilalagyan ng wine. So that's the perspective. Going back on the side ng certifying body. Malinaw ang kanilang objective. Ito lang ang kanilang hahanapin sa iyong produkto. They cannot actually see it. They cannot even smell it. They cannot even touch it. So anything that they deem questionable when they do the assessment of your product and your facility is that some of the ingredients you will be asked to have it examined by laboratory, and they will provide the guidance for that. Itong hygienic and sanitary preparation of food, which is again universal, essentials din ito. Very essential din ito sa halal assessment or during the evaluation of your production processes. Yung currently new standard sanitary operating procedures, I guess this is sanitation standard operating procedures, SSOP. This is very basic. Excuse me. For small processors, I would really strongly suggest to you put in writing as a document, kasi mga documented documents talaga ito lahat. Put in writing your sanitation standard operating procedures or SSOP. Kahit na maliit pa lang inyong gawain para makasanayan na ninyo kung paano talagang gawing clean, safe ang produkto nyo. Dahil when your business grow into a small business and then into a medium-sized business, into a large business, then you will be required to put into writing your good manufacturing practices, yung guidelines nyo sa hazard critical control point. And then some of you, if you want to compete with other big players in the food business, you may have to seek ISO 22000, which are parts and parcel of halal assurance system. Now, all certifying bodies consider these food safety guidelines when conducting product evaluation. I could ask you now kung naintindihan ba niyo o nakuha ba yung sinasabi ko. Huwag sana niyo kalimutan, no? Isulat lang niyo or just keep it in your mind. Ask me anything, no? Pagdating sa QA part ng ating session. Halal compliance has two aspects. This is very clear. Now, that's why I mentioned about dapat lahat nakakaalam, even if it is a small food enterprise. One is internal and the other external. Internal, which means that those involved in the processing and manufacturing product, meron na silang mga tao na organize. Ang tawag dito is Halal Compliance Team. Halal Compliance Team. Normally, kung malaki-laking kumpanya ito, kasama dito yung production manager, yung R&D, head ng R&D, yung QA head, yung sa purchasing, and sa transport, and any other additionals which the management would like to add. In the case of small processors, buong pamilya now becomes the halal compliance team. So that's internal, which means that itong halal compliance team, everybody knows exactly how to prepare and what should be considered in the processing of halal compliant food. So what is this external? This is the certifying body, which is the third party. You know why is it important? Why it is important to have an internal compliance team? Kasi yung certifying body nyo will only see you probably just twice a year. But you're producing your product every day. And you're selling it every day. Sa totoo lang, for those halal consumers who have been consistently patronizing halal products, at some point in their buying practices of your halal products, nagtatanong pa rin yun halal pa kaya ito? Halal pa ba kaya ito? Okay. Tinatanong pa rin yan. Okay. There is still doubt at tinatawag na shubha. Except that hopefully they wish that it's still halal. Again, then you eat, sayang ang personal prayers nila, sayang good deeds nila. Of course, napakainit sa impyerno kung sakasakali na meron silang nakain na haram. Okay? So the external is the certifying body. So that's the two aspects ng halal compliance, internal and external. Allow me to proceed. Yung halal assessment na in-urge talaga namin should be conducted by an accredited or recognized competent body or organization. We have in the Philippines about 5 to 7, I guess, accredited halal certifying organizations. These organizations were certified by the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, in I don't know if you have one based in Iloilo or in Tagbilaran. Yeah, by the way, yes, I still recall that we conducted a halal learning session on halal export in Tagbilaran and Iloilo, but we missed Puerto Princesa, no? Kasi from Dumaguete, we did we took the fast food. I mean fast crab. I mean fast food. We took the fast crab all the way to Tagbilaran for the same purpose. Sayang, I missed it. We missed the Legazpi city. This is a 21 city halal export program where I was invited by DTI to be the resource person. So going back to the assessment, dapat yung recognized na competent body ang mag-certify ng product. Dati, no, there are about 51 certifying entities. Either these are organizations that no longer exist, or either these are two-man organization, and then one-man certifying, hindi ko masabi ito kung organization, basta one-man certifying entity na lang. No? Gone with that. Hindi na ocean, maliban na lang yung sinasabi dito na yung nag-slaughter, kailangan yung certification niya, yung the Muslim who actually did the slaughtering of animal, kailangan niya yung kanyang certification. But on the finished product, it has to be by organization. Again, because the food now being manufactured in the world, it's not only what we call sinasabi natin deliciously dangerous food, but it has become a very sophisticated food in a sense, complicated na rin ang kanyang ingredients na ginagamit, and karamihan, most of them are unnatural, na akala natin na mango juice yung pala amoy na lang at lasa ng mango juice, but there's not a single drop of mango juice na nandoon. So that's studies have common criteria. They have really common criteria anywhere in the world. They knew exactly what to look at in the products and how it should be evaluated. So paano sila nagkakaiba? It says here, in their level of sophistication, yung kanilang organizational, yung kanilang management, yung knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence, and your technical competence. Ideally, yung halal certifying bodies should be composed both of those with knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence, ibig sabihin these are Islamic scholars, and the technical people. So who are these technical people na dapat kasama sa organization? They could be food technologists. Of course, they are Muslims. All of them actually Muslims. It could be nutritionists. It could be a food science specialist. It could be a veterinarian. Of course, it could be somebody who finished in the field of medical sciences and pharmacologists and the like. It's actually the involvement with these two groups of people that would allow them really to find exactly whether the food is halal and is allowed for the Muslims to consume. Itong sinasabi ko rito, or these Islamic scholars I mentioned, sila kasi yung magiging judge. Of course, they are not aware about the terms being used by nutritionists, the terms being used by chemists, the terms used by food technologists, terms being used by veterinarians, they don't know about that. So that's why itong mga technical people, ito sila ang nagde-describe sa Islamic scholars kung ano yung proseso, ano yung ginamit, anong chemicals ang ginamit, anong ingredients ang ginamit, anong role ng mga ingredients ang ginamit, sila ang magpapaliwanag. And the final word will always be those Islamic scholars within the organization, and they will say, yes, it's permissible for halal consumers, or they would say, regrets, it's not permissible. So, yun lang ang pinakaiba sa level of sophistication. I hope that's quite clear to all of you. Putting into context, halal is more than just a key to market access. It is actually a portion of God's gift to mankind, being lawful, being wholesome, safe, healthy, and pleasing. There was this medium-sized food manufacturing based in Davao, and they introduced an all halal meat finished product, processed products, yung tinatawag natin mga sausages. I saw them actually in one of the outlets here in the mall. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it actually. But I asked those my brothers and sisters in one of the Friday prayers if they saw the product. I said, and saw this. Oh yes, we saw it. In fact, we bought it. I see. So why? And they asked me why. I said, I understand that company pulled it out from the grocery, and why is it that they pulled it out? And then I asked those who bought. They say, hindi kasi masarap eh. So what I am actually suggesting to the food processors, gawin naman yung masarap, no? Just like any other people, they want the tasty food. They want something pleasing to their palate, no? Hindi actually masarap, kaya hindi na sila bumibili kahit na halal pa yon. So that's one clue for you. Make it really good. Your halal consumers will be very, very happy. And of course, those who are non-Muslims will be even more happy. And well, that's could be the best thing that will happen to you when both the halal consumers and the conventional consumers that you have, they both patronize your products. That's really something for you to look forward to. Oops, I have to skip this. Ma'am, are you saying anything? Asel?
Yeah. Bali, tinitignan ko lang po yung time, ma'am. Ay, sir, kasi I think some of the participants may be, excited na magtanong sa inyo. So maybe some of the topics can be elaborated more during the open forum po, if you would allow that.
I will proceed on the certification processes, ha?
Okay, sir.
So, skip ko na ito, bakit kailangan yung halal certification, ha? And then we go to these conditions as quite, medyo mahaba-haba ito. Marami kasi sana akong gustong iparating kasi hindi kasi ito madalas na mangyari, no? Sayang yung oras. What will go
time po kasi natin sir. We only have 1 hour for the presentation po. But anyway, yeah. So, para mas...
questions, no? To ask questions.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Merong mga produkto kahit na kahit na small producers na ito, like gumagawa lang ng sutangon, meron silang ini-import. So, normally, those mga imported na mga ingredients, well, if you would ask me now, is that they also have to be halal certified from the country where it came from. I'll make this a little bit faster. Okay. All right. Steps and certification. Number 1, dapat sumulat kayo. Itong on a formal way of doing it, letter of intent ng inyong kumpanya at saka yung inyong business profile, kailan kayo sinagawa, anong produkto nyo, and so forth, and all these things. And then you file the information slip. and then you submit other required documents. In the first place, dapat talaga registered kayo. At kung small size na kayo, I think you will be required to have an FDA registration. Okay? And then there will be preliminary evaluation by the certifying body ng lahat ng yung submitted documents. And then at times, or most of the time, there will be an interview, and then they will schedule company visit and assessment. And before that, they will start, and after that, I mean, they will start the actual conduct of site assessment. Okay? And then they will prepare the findings, and kung meron sila nakitang deficiencies or inadequacies, they will ask you to do corrective measures. And they will have a required time to do that, and then re-evaluate it again. And then they will subject any ingredients that they thought is shubha for slab analysis. You will pay for that, and then the result of it will be part of the decision-making process whether your product will be approved or not as halal or non-halal. And it's really important that you will have an orientation. And right now, you already have an orientation and complied with. And then there will be a recommendation for the training ng inyong ng inyong mga members, or yung may tinatawag, some companies like small businesses, they will designate a halal assurance officer. This is very important. Allow me to work on this. Nilampasan ko na ito kasi pumunta tayo steps. The requirement is that those who are seeking halal certification should have a Muslim in their production team. Should have a Muslim in their production team. Most likely that will be required. Or at the most, they will give you time, maybe a year, to consider that and provide you temporary halal certification. That Muslim that will be part of you will be the halal assurance officer. Remember, the certifying body will not see you 24 days, only twice a year at the most, but you'll be producing your product, and that halal assurance officer will be the first person that will be asked by the certifying body when renewal comes into play. I hope that's clear enough. It will be required also later on that you have to prepare a halal compliance plan in the same manner you prepare an HACCP plan. And then you have the SSOP guidelines. Meron din kayong halal compliance plan. And after which there will be a recommendation by those who inspected your facility, either it is for approval or disapproval. The renewal could either be yearly or every 2 years. And in cases, there will be some suggestion from certifying body to allow for them for intermittent audit, yung tinatawag na unannounced audit. And that's something that you have to be prepared to respond to. And confidentiality, it is the policy of certifying bodies to maintain confidentiality of information and documentation belonging to the applicant. And now we go to question and answer.